So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, so my name is Charlotte. I'm from a mid student, second year in the migration track. Welcome to this third roundtable of the semester. Before we start, I wanted to share with you some practical information. So first, this session is registered. And second, there is a Q&A session at the end. You can keep your questions for the end of the session after the roundtable. People online, hi, we're not forgetting about you. You can also ask your question in the chat and then we will just ask them for you. This roundtable is part of the Alumni Month, happening every year, organized by the Alumni Office. And this series of inspired student roundtables is aiming to connect our current students and alumni community. And yeah, the purpose is to learn from each other and enjoy each other's knowledge. Next week we'll have the last one of this semester, of this month, which is going to be about art and culture. We'll have UNHCR Head of Innovation, Alvaro Cosi, and also Luc Meyer, who's the director of LABEC and Art Residency. Today, we have the great privilege to have two farmers, entrepreneurs, alumni, having a hands-on approach to farming with a strong commitment to social and environmental sustainability. They're also scientists because farming the land and raising animals is also science. And beyond that, they're business leaders. So Tara is not only cultivating land, but also running a shop. And Andres manages a coffee roasting facility and a coffee shop in addition to his farming activities. Thank you both for being here today. Thank you, Andres, because it's very early for you. So yeah, first we have Tara Bade, who graduated from the Masters in Development Studies in 2015. She's an anthropologist, filmmaker, and farmer. She's exploring pastoralism and human-animal-environment relationships. Her research spans France, Switzerland, and Nepal, where she studied yak herders near the Tibetan border. Having lived in remote regions and worked as a shepherd herself, she combined research and practice for 12 years. And since 2023, she has been working as a farmer and run a farmer's shop in southwestern France. And she's currently setting up a company to support farming collectives. Thank you so much for coming. And Andres Torico, who graduated from the Masters in Development Studies in 2017, first studied law, then worked on development projects in Bolivia before coming to the Graduate Institute. He became passionate about coffee with his wife Marita and his mother Ines, and partners in France. He founded Cuatro Llamas Coffee, a company built on 3 pillars: people, sustainability, and innovation. This company aims to contribute to the Bolivian coffee industry by combining quality excellence with a positive social and environmental impact. So yeah, again, thank you so much for coming. And now I will hand it over to our dear Professor Christophe, who's the moderator today. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Thank you, dear Charlotte. Good afternoon. I'm really more than happy to chair this session because I had the privilege to follow, supervise, and work together with, in the case of Andres. So really happy, Tara and Andres, to have you both in this session. I will start asking you about your choice to do what you're doing today. Both of you have been in research. Tara, you've done after the Mint the PhD, and Andres, you have worked as a researcher a couple of months or 1 or 2 years after, published also. So you both had many options after your study. What has made you becoming holding a farm, shop, and being in this sector? May I start with you, Tara?
Sure. Okay. Thanks for everyone for being here and for having me. Graduate Institute. So for me, after my studies here, it was still at the time called Masters in Development Studies, International Development. I basically started applying both to jobs, but more like research for development jobs, and to PhDs, PhD grants, scholarships mainly. And I thought the first one who takes me is fine because I always wanted to have, I was always torn between practice and research. And my dream was to combine both. That's what I'm trying to do today. And so after 2 years of sending applications, I also trained as a shepherd during that time and worked as one in the Alps, in the French Alps. I finally got a scholarship to begin a PhD in Zurich, at the University of Zurich.
So you're saying that's money who drove you?
No, definitely not.
Thank you, Taha. What about you, Andres? We discussed a lot at the end if you would go for a PhD also. There were incentives, people around telling you should go. And then, tell us.
Yeah, well, basically, we worked with Christoph for a couple of years after more than a couple of years. I think it was like 3 to 4 years that we were working on the Demeter project. And I really loved the research. That's an area that I really enjoyed. So I was a bit torn because when I started the master was sort of perfect for me because it was very interdisciplinary. So if you have a knowledge of what you want to do, you can really take advantage of that. But I always loved field work. Like I really liked doing the work that I did in SIPCA. So when I went back to Bolivia, before we continued with the research project, we started thinking and coming up with an idea to present to an NGO actually. And we were thinking about either coffee or cacao because it was a very interesting sector. There was an specialty market growing. There were small producers that could take advantage of that, but at the same time, they were being left out because bigger companies were entering into the sector. So it seemed like really interesting. But then we started doing the research with you, Christoph, and the entire team at the Graduate Institute. And we started thinking, what about because it's very cool to earn Swiss francs and live in Bolivia. The exchange rate is perfect in that regard. So we started saving money and we found partners that were willing to sort of put these ideas that we had for an NGO to a business solution. Actually, a conversation with a friend helped a lot by saying if you work a very long time in SIPCA and you saw how NGOs sort of have to follow certain trends, and it's very important to have a good relation with donors. So certain projects and programs often don't continue because of that. So if you have the chance to do something by yourself, it could be interesting. So that made me wonder, what about, I was always thinking, okay, let's go to an NGO to work, but what about we do something for ourselves and try to put everything that we loved and we wanted to do. So in that scenario, I'm really fortunate. I'm one of the fortunates because I could sort of put research. You could put the passion that I have of being in the farm, working in the farm, and at the same time learning the learning curve for this. To be an entrepreneur in this particular area, it's super big. So it seemed like a logical solution. At the beginning, it was very hard, but that's how I ended up building with my partner for Yamas Coffee.
Thank you, Andres. I have no remark, no joke about the money factor in the scholarship. Could you tell us two things that you kept from your master or the PhD that has been useful, that you keep in mind, very simply, 2 striking things, if any, that your experience here has made you? Andres, first.
Okay, perfect. Well, like I said at the beginning, I was one of the fortunate. I already worked for at least I think 4 years before I arrived to the Graduate Institute, and the Graduate Institute was tailor-made for what I wanted. So I basically wanted everything in line with food and agriculture topics. So all the subjects that were dealing with food and agriculture, that was something that I was interested. So I could take classes of this particular area, and also I wanted to improve my quantitative skills like econometrics, impact evaluation, because I understood that these two were very much in line, the soft and hard skill, if you want to say. So in that regard, I used that a lot. for the quantitative purpose, we do a lot of innovation, and we do something here in Foyamas that we called like fermentation based on evidence. So all these ideas of measuring impact in my area works a lot, and also everything that that we did in not only the program itself, which is great, but meeting all these super interesting people because we come from very different backgrounds, but at the same time we have so many similar things, helped me a lot in understanding how I'm going to frame this project. We had discussions with a friend whose name was Avi, who was part of the Graduate Institute with me, and we shared a lot between these specialty sectors and how can we work. So I think it's a combination of the subject that, of course, help a lot. It helps you understand the market that is different than my own here in Bolivia, but Europe. And at the same time, this very international environment help you connect with very interesting people that actually help you a lot with building what you want. So I think in this regard, I really took advantage. One, the skills that you get by learning certain and focusing the studies in the things that you want. And the second is, of course, and I think it's even more, the connections that you have with the people around you in the Graduate Institute.
Your master is useful. Continue it. Taha.
Okay, for me, I would say critical thinking and an attention to the big picture, as well as, I mean, the micro and the macro scale and the meso in between. I would say that really helped me put in perspective everything I was doing, and the fact of starting a farm in France was put in relationship to the bigger picture, because we live in an interconnected world and everything is connected to everything else, and what I do in one specific point is influenced by all the rest. So I would say these two things.
Okay, thank you. Clear. So could you now please tell us what you are doing? Well, Charlotte has brought already a series of activities and tasks, but can you tell us your daily life? What does it look like? Can we start with you?
Sure.
A classic day of Tara.
A classic day.
Holding a PhD in a farm.
Okay, so today I defended my thesis, my PhD thesis in 2003, March 2003, and since then a few things happened. But today, what my job consists in, I'm on a few grounds at the same time. On the one hand, I'm farming in a collective farm. There are 4 of us on the farm. So I was first I had livestock until last summer, and then I decided to only help grow vegetables. And the other thing is managing this farmer's shop, which is run by the farmers themselves, which take turns in selling at the shop. So I'm one of the 3 creators, and now I manage this shop on a day-to-day basis. It's open 6 days a week. And so that's mainly what keeps me most busy. And the third thing I would say is I'm slowly working to set up a business association. We'll see which form it takes, but the goal of which would be to support farming collectives on the human and social aspects of it. Of course, it would cover all the aspects of what it means to start a community, a farming community, the economic aspects, the legal aspects, the technical aspects. But my own focus would be on the human and social one. And then my colleagues, I'm trying to find people to work with, would cover the other domains, which they would be an expert in.
Thank you. Super interesting farming, but you're also into education or vocational training with this project, and also into business, your shop, whatever it is, collective or not. What about you, Andres? You're not just eating coffee grains.
Well, it's a bit moved. It's seasonal. Like me and Marita, we're in everything, so we're moving quite a lot. I'm mostly in charge. Like Foyamas has 2 CEOs. One is me, and the other one is Marita. And we deal with different things, but we have a lot of work together. So I'm the one in charge of production. So I stay, I would say, like 50% of the time in the farm, particularly during the harvesting season. So it starts in late May and until all the way up until September. I'm mostly there, not moving there, because it's everything like in terms of production. And then, of course, I go week by week and monitor the different tasks that we have to do in the farm. Then we have this project called For Yam's Family Initiative that happens during the same amount of time. That's where we work with small producers to sort of on this training and give some inputs for the processing of coffee. Later on, we can talk about that. But then, like doing these type of things, it's interesting. You learn a lot, and of course, there's a lot of things that are quite not as interesting, like paperwork, like finance, like accountants, and all of that. So we are like sort of building the project still. Every year we're trying to do something new, and so we have a lot of time that we have to be talking with the banks and talking with taxes and doing all the paperwork for export so there's a lot of administrative stuff that you have to do, and that's when I'm mostly in either Cochabamba or Santa Cruz, and the other time I'm at the farm. So we have these very interesting things that we do when we're in the farm, where you're producing coffee, you're processing coffee, and we are also exporting, but at the same time you have all these other tasks that are related to the financial well-being of the company that you have to do quite a lot. So as a regular day, it's very different. I would say it's seasonal. During the harvesting season, I'm there. I'm not dealing with that thing. And then the rest of the time is doing this other stuff that are also interested at the end of the day, but it's something that you have to do to make it work. It's very interesting jumping from working in an NGO to having your own business, because you sort of didn't account when we started that, of course, with all the legal and economical and taxes and everything that you have to sort of understand, know, and learn. So that's why we say it's like a super big learning curve, because one is learning how to actually farm, because it's different when you're a consultant than when you're actually doing it. And the other thing is learning how a business works and what you need to sort of make it work.
Thank you, André. So in both cases, we understand that among your activities, learning, you're still a student. You have to learn, because it's a science. It's not just sowing, maintaining, and harvesting. All right. Thank you very much for those explanations. I would like now to ask you, how did you start? I guess there's some financial capital. I speak like a prof in the sustainable livelihood system. But it's not only about money, but interesting to know how when you were 30, Andres about the same age, and you mobilized resources, and it's not just getting a job. I mean, you must, I don't know if I would put, I don't know how much you put, but please tell us about that. But also, it's not only about financial capital, but it's also, so you explained you're in a collective, you're more than 400. It's also mobilizing people. What is it easy? It comes like this. Okay, it's the romance of the partner, but I guess it's more complex than that.
Yeah.
Taha, would you start?
Would you like the answer for the farm or for the shop? Or both?
For both. Huh? We're talking about kick-off investment. How do you create this?
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, the farm I bought with Swiss money, but it was from my scholarship. I basically saved enough money. I was basically paid, it was a SNSF project, so I was paid minimum wage, but it's still enough to live from, and I saved from that money, and with my contribution and that of my family, because my family stepped into the project as well. My brother is one of the farmers on the farm, and his girlfriend. And my partner, we each put a bit of money, and so that was mainly it. For the farm, it's quite different. By then, I was pretty broke, so I didn't have any Swiss money to put in the project. But that's the power of the collective. We were already so many interested in this project that each put just a little bit of money, and that's enough capital to begin to start. The other thing is that it's. We managed to get by with quite a cheap bill of investments to begin with, to kick off. We're renting the place, we didn't buy it. the rent is fairly high for the region, but it's a big space, so it's quickly, we can put a lot of products, and that enables us to take a small margin to pay for fees, and it's an association, so the goal is not to make money, it's for every farmer to live sufficiently well from selling their produce. So it took off a lot of weight and expectations to make money. That was not the goal from the start.
And about people, was it easy to convince them, to force them,
I think
to seduce them?
it didn't
How
take.
does that work?
Yeah, it didn't take any of it didn't take much convincing. I think if we had asked for capital, for investors, it would have taken a lot of convincing to do. But here, it's just the idea emerged from the ground up. It's just so a lot of us were neighbors on the market, the Saturday market, and we were complaining about the fact that this is such an inefficient way of selling. The market is great, the atmosphere is great, but it was just such a waste of time and energy for sometimes very little gain, because you come with your fresh produce, vegetables, for example. If it rains, basically your day is ruined, and you get back home with almost all of your produce, and that's the week's salary. So it was that's what brought us to think about solutions, to set it up. So it didn't take much convincing, and then we just all chipped in. We were talking to fellow farmers around to ask if they would be interested too, and all the people who joined us were interested and were ready to put a bit of money in. So started.
Thank you for the explanation. Fascinating. Andres, was it also that easy, natural? How did it work on your side?
It wasn't easy, but I think it became natural. Actually, it was a bit different than Tara's. I needed to find investments because I needed to buy the farm, and there was a lot of infrastructure that it's needed and certain things. So I needed to go and find. We needed to no, we needed to go and find investment, but we managed to come with like ideal partners, I would say. I think both Marita and I were super passionate about this aspect. And it was a great thing, like similar to to what Tara said, that we were building it with Swiss francs. We're both working as researcher. Marita at that time was doing her PhD in econometrics. So at the same time, we were working and building the project. So that helped a lot because it had to create a lot of, we had to sort of tackle this problem like a research program. Like we went in, we needed to do research about the perfect areas. Like we needed to see if the facility would work, how was the market internationally. So besides of at that time we were working both in research with the Graduate Institute. Marita was with the EPFL, and we were like sort of understanding this market, and at the moment we had to sort of to learn how to do like this investor speech for our partners in France. For example, we needed to provide like a cash flow, which was very hard because Bolivia is not like it's a bit risky as an investment from other countries. At the same time, we were like just studying in this. Yes, we had some accolades in terms of academics, but not necessarily in the business sector. So they demand like a lot of projections in terms of the financial thing that Marita did perfectly, and so we had like many meetings to sort of get the first round of investment to sort of start the project. But it's like a huge learning curve, and so you have a lot of problems, but then you have to go fixing it, and that's how we sort of managed to get the partners. And I think now they could tell you that they're very happy with their investment, but for the first couple of years was a bit tough. In terms of human capital, which I would say is what made Foyamas, we wouldn't be here if we weren't with the people that we not only partner, but that are part of Foyamas team, which is the people that work in the farm, the people that work in the roastery, the people that work with the distribution of the coffee, answering so everybody. We started from scratch. So at the beginning there was like 4 people in the entire company, and we all did everything. So that's very tough because you made a lot of mistakes. You're like overworked and everything, but at the same time, it's great. So it's like a great thing to do it that way because you learn everything. Like everybody does everything in Cuatro Llamas, and that's sort of the motto here. Like it's not like I'm the owner. I'm not gonna do the weeding or the fertilization or no. Everybody does everything, and that's sort of the climate that we built with Emilio, which in the farm, and Marita with Cindy here at Cuatro Llamas. And then the team started growing, and uh, I wouldn't say it was easy, but I think if you have a structure that works and where people are comfortable working with, it's much easier. But it took a while. It took many mistakes, and fortunately enough, I think we are one of the lucky ones. We don't have rotation with teams. Like the people that started are still with us 7 years onto this project, and we hope we're gonna stay always. But yeah, like in terms of how you get money, it was more like in a business, like bank, like if you would go to a bank to ask for a loan, we had to do that with investors, and then we had to get banking loans because we needed to do something. So in that regard, it's very traditional, but you learn a lot that we didn't have any idea how to pitch that, but we managed to do. And in terms of people, I think it's a combination of a lot of luck and finding the person at the right spot, and a very horizontal and friendly relationship with the people that you work with and have a set goal. But that also took a while. It's like 7 years that we're in, and now we can say that everything is structured, but at the beginning, it was a bit hard.
Thank you. Keep in mind this. It remains an activity linked to the weather. We're saying if on the Sunday market it's raining, it's lost. I guess the harvest can fluctuate also depending on the weather. So it remains an activity that has some instability, or can have potential instability. And what you explained shows that it needs a lot of effort mobilizing people, resources, etc. One quick question: did it happen to you when you were setting up that at some point you said, "No, it's too much"? Like I would did it? I'm not talking about the hardships since then, but because still I know you are people who could say, "No, stop," and I apply again to the UN, to whoever, you could make it. Was it the case, or your determination, stubbornness, maybe, was an asset and made it?
Atara? Okay.
Every now and then I have this thought. What I did was last year I decided that farming at the same time was just too much. So that's why it was a very difficult decision to take, because it was part of my passion. I mean, the farming, taking care of animals in the most ecological way possible, while also trying to live from it, and the whole ecosystem that it involves was really something fascinating and to me. But it was too much, especially at the beginning. The first few years of the farming business are just the hardest. They're really the hardest. So I could not do both at the same time, but I was not content only doing that, because there were other aspects that I wanted to experience in my life that were not there from only farming. So I had to take this difficult decision of stopping the farming business and devoting myself entirely to the shop. And now that it's running more smoothly, I started picking up farming again, but just supporting my partner in vegetable gardening. But of course, definitely, sometimes we both wonder, like, why are we doing this? What's the point of all of this? It's just so hard, as you mentioned. I mean, it's sometimes, animals that come eat your crop. Sometimes it's the weather that destroys everything. And the economic difficulties of it, the hardships with institutions, that's also a big topic. And everything is made to discourage you to practice this. But at the same time, for me and for also my partner and those involved on the farm, it has so much, it's very meaningful to us. So that I think that's what, and we're stubborn people. I think that's also a good quality to have in this realm. So I think that's what kept us afloat and kept us going. But I think we also would have, at some point, the strength. If it's just too much and it doesn't make sense anymore, I think we would be able to say, okay, let's stop there. It was a great experience. We learned a lot, and let's move on.
So lesson, quick academic highlight, lesson from what you're saying, and waiting for Andres to check. The big debate of small-scale farmers versus large-scale farming companies, it illustrates very well the fact that the strength of small-scale farmers is the flexibility, and that, you can stop, and you can stop breeding animals and switch back and expand on the vegetables, produce less, but sell also the products of others, and that's definitely this flexibility. I guess it does not really from all the pain and hardship, but still, it's really important. Andres, did it happen that you thought, no, I leave it, I go back to write a PhD thesis, or something else?
No, actually, well, and I always we always thank our partners because we're sort of like, it's a struggle every time, but I'm super risk prone and I really like the challenge. So in that regard, we could say, yeah, we are super stubborn. But it's not just out of stubbornness. Like what we realized, like we had problems from the beginning. We almost lost the plantation the first year. We almost lost the entire harvest the second year. The third year we had the driest season of all the time, and we worked with a lot of water for the processing of coffee. So we had to change our fermentation techniques. So there was all these struggles that we had to come up with. Then we had COVID just when we were starting and we needed to sell, and we were super desperate for that regard. So it was super tough, and I've been in a lot of conferences and everything, and then like in meetings with NGOs and everything, and all the time they're talking about resilience. And for me, it was just a buzzword used in the development sectors quite a lot that had no real meaning at that time for me. But then we sort of like started understanding what really it is, and it's finding opportunities in hardship, or more than hardship, in certain problems that happen to you that make you be creative. So this is super interesting. Like at the beginning, we didn't know how to, like, it was a very humbling experience because you think you come, you have read the books, you have done the study, and you think you know what it means to work a farm, to establish a farm. We wanted to establish 13 hectares of coffee. We lost almost 10. We did 3.5. It was raining all the time. We couldn't make a road, so we had to climb the mountain with the baskets of the coffee in our bags. The 6 people that we were, it was super challenging, for example, in that aspect. Then the second year we purchased machinery that came and it didn't work, so we had to do like magic to make it work. But that created certain tools that we never sort of thought about. We had to learn how to, like, for example, problem solving, which I think it's a task that can translate to research, can translate to business, can translate to everything. And it's how you solve a problem, because at the end of the day, anything that you're going to do, like it's either in research, when we had problems, for example, in Cambodia, when we couldn't go inside the certain communities because of the political situation, or whether it's that the climate, which is super important in agriculture, that's why it's a very risky endeavor, because like climate can really affect you. But the idea is, how do you manage to solve this problem? It's solving problems one day at a time. So yes, it is a lot of hardship, but at the same time, it creates resilience, and that's sort of what I think made us much stronger as individuals, as a collective, and also as finding creative solutions. That's why we have a line which is innovation. And just as an example, 2 years ago, there was another, the dry the dry season that we have that was super bad, we didn't have water to process, so we had to innovate and think about fermentation in a different way. So we started doing like new different fermentation techniques with the coffee. We invented a couple of them to sort of not use water and use these new techniques. And at the end of the day, that coffee was in terms of points, because it's a matter of points, 80 points, 90 points, above 80 points is a specialty, then about 90 points is exceptional. We had one coffee that was 92, and that was by doing this, that it wasn't actually done for specifically for improving the quality of the coffee, but to manage things. So this idea of always like looking at these problems and trying to find solutions that make it more creative was something that it helped a lot. And related to the question that you were saying, like the flexibility that small scale farmer have, yes, in a way, but in that matter, like I would disagree a bit with the academic, because now that we are bigger and we have more capital, we have the chance of doing a lot of this flexibility, and we have the possibility of diversifying our production. And for example, in the coffee chain, like now we have a coffee shop, but before we only were producing coffee. We are selling also the surpluses, for example, the cascara of the dry cascara of coffee. So you can like shift because you have the economic means to do it. Sometimes with small scale farmers, like especially small scale farmers, like in my region, like they diversify because they need. But if they have, like in my particular area, a bad season of coffee season, that really affects their finances, and it's not like they can like sort of shift or move, because they have a plot of land where they have coffee and they have other products, but it's seasonal. So you harvest the coffee once a year, and if you have a bad season, that affects the entire finance of the year. So this is something that it's very interesting in this particular sector, especially a specialty, because what is happening is that before, farming coffee, for example, wasn't very profitable for companies to do. It was better to just work with small scale producer, buy their coffees and sell it. But now that there's a lot of money, like you could sell coffee right now, like 50 euros the pound in some areas. A lot of new entrepreneurs such as myself, but also bigger companies, are going into the market and pushing the small scale farmers back to a point where they are only produce fruit and not process their coffee. So they're going to be fruit coffee producers, but not necessarily process the coffee that you drink. So that's why it's something that we need to consider, particularly in a sector where there's money coming from big companies to the acquisition of land and the development of these companies that are producing coffee, and the small scale producer that has been producing for generations there, but at the same time, like doesn't have the technology required to produce this type of coffee. It's like the wine industry here in Bolivia, for example. Before you could be a winemaker and do it at your house, but now like to get the cost of producing this bottle, it's so high comparing to big companies that have the benefit of a scale and they can earn that.
Thank you, Andres, for your answer. Thank you for your scholar contribution to the concept of flexibility. The one I was referring could be called the survival flexibility. I understand you've reached the comfort, maybe one day the luxury flexibility. And what you explained sounds like a research proposal. I'm interested to discuss further. Thank you very much. I would like to ask you now to tell us about, beside the work, the hard work, the hardships, and the challenges, etc. Well, you also have a life, I hope, even if I know you work hard. Lifestyle, I think you mentioned one or two things to share with the students. Well, you know, here from Geneva, we have the idea, you have the idea, because you see the faculty, what kind, or you can guess, speculate on what kind of life we have. You do internship within the UN, you're acquainted to NGOs, and so you can imagine, represent. We see, there's no UN people in the room, we see UN people with the badge in the tram, and we guess, oh, this is what it looks like, but we cannot maybe figure out what is your lifestyle, what are the nice moments, what is What is cool also? What are the pleasures?
Okay.
For example?
I'll give a few sneak peeks into little blessed moments in my week.
Make us dream.
It's really just seizing those little moments of bliss that are, if you don't pay attention, if you're too stressed or too overwhelmed by the situation, you wouldn't see them because you have to pay attention to them. But for example, waking up very early and the sun is just setting up, and when I still had my animals, and you go to your animals and they're clearly waiting for you, and you open the gate to the next fresh pasture with this very lush green grass with the little droplets on the blades of grass, and then there's this particular light that goes through the mist. I mean, it sounds a bit poetic indeed and romanticized, but it's just, and this is really, that's why I'm saying, like, it's little blissful moments, but it's not what makes the whole of the day. But I mean, these moments are what make you go on, basically, and they give a lot of purpose to what you're doing. And then, they go to this fresh pasture and are enjoying so much this new fresh grass. And moments like these at the shop, it can be like a very smooth process and good mood, good collaboration between people, and there's this emulation, this energy of doing together and being inspired by each other. At the end of a meeting, for example, where you see that, I don't know, there's this particular energy in the room in between amongst your team, where you think, okay, this is flowing well. And of course, the rest of the week there'll be conflicts and frictions or things that don't work, but they're kind of saved by this tiny little moment in your week where you're like, okay, it's worth fighting for and persevering for.
Okay, sounds good. And no N+1. No boss.
Yeah, well, that's
no head of department.
For me, that's a big plus indeed. I experienced for the first time really of my life le salariat, how do you say that?
Wage labor.
Wage labor. But wage labor with a boss in an institution. Oh my God, this was really a horrible experience for me. I'm sure for many people it can be great because of the stability, because of the routine, because it structures your day, there's predictability and security, financial security. For me, it was just hell. It was right after my PhD. I just got a job at this agricultural, it was the regional agricultural institution, which is in big part funded by the government, by the French government. And my job sounded great on paper. It was to support groups of farmers to transition towards agroecology. Wonderful, with a lot of research and also a lot of field work. But it was for me, it was extremely narrow. I had no say in the program, in how I could do it, in the methodology, in how to change the program according to what I noticed was needed. I'm not saying that all institutions are like this, or all businesses, definitely not, but this particular place was terrible for me. And being accountable on every single, I think 60% of my work, and I think this might be common to a lot of organizations, actually, especially those that are subsidy dependent, or 60% of my job was to be held accountable and prove what I was doing, that what I was doing was matching with what I was being paid for. 60% of it. 40% then was mixed between field work, doing my actual job, and more admin. It was really...
That's something we hear quite often from NGOs, international organizations, this heavy administrative load. We hear it also very often from the farmers, saying that there's so much bureaucracy that is taking or wasting a lot of time. Thank you for this testimony. Andres, best time of the year? The best
I don't I don't know if to frame it like the best time of the year, because there's a lot of things that I could say that are that make my day and make my life actually. And I think I can give just a few examples to sort of understand that. Like being in this particular sector, it makes you, that's something that I didn't take into account, but you meet some incredibly passionate people about food. This is something that I always loved, like food in every single sense, not only nutrition or the taste of it, but also the culture aspect that happened with that. So I had the chance and the possibility of meeting amazing people doing incredible things with whether being farmers, whether being chefs, whether being baristas, that are very passionate about their art because they consider it art, and I consider it art and science at the same time. So you meet these wonderful people and you collaborate, you do certain things. So my network, my social network, but as for friends, has grown. And what's very interesting, particularly in these times, is that through the connection of this particular crop, it's my case. If it's a chef, for example, you got the chance to meet some of my chef friends in Bolivia, then you're super passionate about that, and sometimes political or ideological ideas doesn't necessarily impede you to have like this incredible conversation and have friends for a diverse range of opinions, etc. So this is something that I really value, and I didn't see it as something that I was going to have. So being in this sector, it helped a lot to meet in these passionate people that are actually also infuse you of a lot of passion yourself. So it's like you sort of build on that passion, and that's something that I really like about this particular sector. Then one of the things that I really enjoyed, it was super hard. There was like, there was times where like I was completely destroyed. We didn't have the strength. We didn't know how we were going to finish it, particularly this first year that we were establishing the farm. But there's something unique about farming, and it's going to sound also very romanticized and everything. But this idea of doing something that is actually palpable, it's something that I really enjoy. My head is going at 100 kilometers per hour. I have a lot of thoughts, but while I'm doing farming, like you're doing the weeding, you just focus on that. So there's like sort of this meditative state that you get into, and the second thing is that it's palpable, that I was saying. When you're writing a paper, you don't know if it's going to have an impact, what happened. With this is super palpable. You plant a tree and you see it grow. And when you see that grow, and when something happens and it dies and everything, it's super interesting, the connection that you have to the farm and to the field. So this is another aspect that I really, really enjoyed, that I thought about it, but I didn't really quite understand it until I was doing it myself, because it's different to see somebody doing it and doing it yourself. That sort of changes the situation and the scenario. So there's this like understanding of real impact on what you're doing, that for me it's very, 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 very good. And then I would say the camaraderie, it's what moves us. It's just, for example, just a tiny example of something that seems not important or anything, that but makes the day. It's, for example, when we're doing the harvesting season, sometimes it's like 14-hour work, because you start very early. You have to wash the coffee, move the like start with the drying of the coffee. Then you receive the coffee at night around 9, 10. You process until midnight, and then at 12:30 or 1 a.m. we go to the kitchen and we brew a fresh batch of coffee. Coffee doesn't affect us anymore in the farm. We drink it like 5 times a day. And then we have one last cup of coffee with the team, not even talking, just relaxing, finishing one day and just having a cup of coffee. That for me, it's like, it makes sometimes a bad day worth it, because there's this camaraderie in farming with the people when you're hands-on. So this sort of this is also some things that sort of make your day. So these are 3 examples: the social aspect with the networking and with meeting other people, the real impact thing of and the meditative state that you do when you're farming, and the third thing is the camaraderie. I think these 3 things are happening constantly among problems and among a lot of things that are happening. This is not like super like beautiful. Like sometimes it's really stressful. You, of course, with the camaraderie comes certain clashes, because you're super stressed and you're working quite a lot. You're tired. You have less patience in that regard. So these things happen, of course. But camaraderie is still there, and everything. These three things, I would say, make my day.
Thank you very much. I think it connects to, you mentioned, use the word the community of the others, or the farmers that you are trying to gather to build this collective. And I guess there's camaraderie also, even if it's hard, it's not easy. Thank you very much. Tell me, I would like just to ask them 2 bullet points style. One word to your peers here in the room. No moral lesson, of course, but just if you, one thing. It can be an advice, it can be whatever you would like.
Should Andres start?
Andres, you want to start?
I'm thinking.
Okay, I'll start then.
I told her before I would finish with this point so she could prepare.
Hard to say. I would say if a given project is really meaningful to you, for whatever reason that you have identified, I would say persevere. Just persevere, go for it. It's going to be hard. The road's going to be bumpy, definitely. I don't know of any project that isn't. But persevere, but also always keep under your arm a plan B. It's always good to have not this tunnel vision, because if it doesn't work, because sometimes things don't work out the way we wanted them to, we expected them to, so your well doesn't crumble when that doesn't turn out to work out the way you intended. So always keep plan B, but convince yourself that this is your direction and you're going there no matter what. I think that helps too.
Merci. And you, Andres?
Well, there was my younger brother was starting in this life, and he asked me like, what would you like for me to do, or what would you like to happen to me? And my answer was, I would love you to fail now. And I think it sounds like really bad. And he's sort of like, what do you want me to fail? And the idea is that perhaps this is an advice that I would give, like, when you fail at the start, you stop looking at failure as failing. And it's just a way of refocusing and reshaping. And I think that's the biggest ability that I've managed. I'm going to give you just a small example of my life. Like I was I did very good at university, and then I couldn't even find a job. And every time I tried to get into the development sector, like the UN and everything was going great, and then it fell down. And then my last option was working at SIPCA, which was an NGO that was in the middle of the Amazonia, and that was the best experience I ever had. And like that, every single thing, like for going to the Graduate Institute, I didn't get it when I was sure I was going to get it, and then I had to reshape and refocus, and that was actually super good for me. So when you understand that failure isn't the end of the road, and that you could really like look at this as an opportunity, that helps you move on with anything that you're doing, whether research, whether you're studying as an entrepreneur, because like Tara said, it's about problem solving all the time. You're always going to have these challenges. So having at the beginning this idea that, okay, like I failed, but I can pick myself up, shows character, and at the same time it makes you more more resilient in this regard. So that was my advice for my brother, like, because I experienced it that way. And when you're young at that stage, and you're solving problems because you're failing and you have to readapt all the time. When you go to big problems later on, you have this capacity and this ability to sort of solve the things, or to understand how to better resolve the things that normally don't happen if everything goes perfectly all the time. And then I've seen friends and I've seen colleagues that they experience something super harsh after being successful for 20-25 years, and they don't know how to handle it. So I think one idea is like, fail, and don't be scared of doing so, but always with this mindset. I think that would be my advice.
Thank you very much to both of you. Now I will just turn to the students, to the room, and those also online. Just if I may sum up, and you'll tell me if I'm right. I keep in mind that your life is a cocktail of passion and perseverance. Even being able to accept to fail, to rebound. Second, people, those you work with, clearly, family, partners, kinship, those with whom you work, but also are those with whom you enjoy life, have pleasure. Third, the variety of activities, which is not given when you have a salary job. It can be very much all the same. Again, with hardship, no romanticization. And the last point is, it's this idea of evolution. We could say development, because you're doing this master. You're developing. There are push, pull, failures, rebound, new activities. There's an incremental process also of improving, developing. That's the cocktail. Sounds good, isn't it?
But maybe the room has some questions.
And now I promise not to speak.
Do you have questions?
Questions or reactions? It can be also you can cry with your heart.
Yeah, go ahead.
What they say.
I can go.
Yeah, please.
I just want to thank Andreas and Tara for their wonderful presentation today. I hope you can hear me, Andreas.
Yeah, perfect. I hear it perfectly. Thank you.
Yes. Since you may know that is the sustainability week that is running, so I just want to center my questions based on sustainability. So my first question to Andreas is, how do you incorporate sustainability in your coffee business, ranging from sourcing beans to serving customers, etc.? And one for Tara, have you implemented any innovative solutions to reduce waste or lower your carbon footprint? Those are the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the question. In terms of sustainability, like how do we farming? We sort of like, it's very simple. It's not like I'm not in this. I haven't managed to go fully organic, for example, or anything. The way that we see this thing is like the first thing is an agroforestry production. That's something that we're trying to implement day by day by day by day. Like we have right now like 16 different timber trees that are being implemented in the farm. So this is one of the things that we're doing. The second thing is the elimination of any pesticide or herbicide in the farm. But I have to be honest with you, we do use chemical fertilizer. This is something that we do in the production of the coffee. The idea is to go, we have 2 plots of land that are organic. It's really quite expensive to do that and a lot of labor, hand labor that we need. But this is a process that we're gonna get into, but we are not at that stage yet. And the third thing that we have implemented, that we're really proud about it because they don't ask us to do it and we don't get anything for that, is that every year we are implementing a different part of because it's a very big project. It's gonna take us like 10 years to do it, but it's how do we manage with wastewater? Coffee wastewater, it's one of the biggest contributor to water pollution because it has a lot of DBO and DQO, which are like the organic matter that of the fermentation. It really takes away all the oxygen of water, and that really affects everything. So we have established, like, we are in the 4th stage of the implementation of this project. And we've managed to reduce the contamination up to 60 and 65%, which we are very proud of. And the second thing, it's a lot of water intensive, and we've managed with certain techniques that we're doing and also the implementation of new machinery to reduce the consumption of water for production that was around 7 liters per kilo of coffee processed to less than a liter. So this is another thing in the environmental sector. And one of the things that we're doing, and it helped us a lot during the dry season to sort of implement with the small producers that we're working in terms of the Four Llamas Family Initiative. That's what the ones that we helped process their own coffee and help them and guide them to the specialty market. With them, we've managed to give plantines, like small trees for their farms, and tell them like, okay, like it's better if you use you're gonna rely less on herbicides or anything, but this is gonna take a while. So it helps us show that when you have an agroforestry system, even in dry season, the floor is wet. So that helps quite a lot. So these are the things we do in terms of environmentally. A lot of other coffee companies do it, but this is what we do.
Thank you.
And for me, on the farm, it's quite a particular team that we have, because I think all four of us have a scientific mind. So our farm is really a sort of innovation lab in a way. We are all very passionate about agroecology and all the different methods, especially the most newly tested and verified methods. And so a lot of these methods, like, of course, agroforestry, key line design, which Andres probably knows also, which are actually not that new. We're not reinventing the wheel, but there are things that were not talked about until recently, and we're using those techniques and it actually testing them in our context. And it's really interesting because there are always adjustments to be made, because then there's the theory that there's what worked on paper or in a specific context. For example, Alan Savory, which is very well known on holistic management of grazing, with rotational grazing. It worked in a specific context, the Zimbabwean context, but in our latitudes, it's really interesting to see which adjustments have to be made so it works locally, because it's not transposable. You can't just like export something and make it work where you live. And so it's just it really mixes it's art and science at the same time. It's also very hands-on. And I was thinking about your question on waste, and I don't think we produce any waste on the farm. I mean, I'm trying to see if there's everything is reused, because I think that's really thanks to the diversity of each pole. There's animal husbandry, there's also vegetable gardening, there's fruit trees, and all of these complement each other really well. So the waste of one nourishes the others. And so for the moment, we don't really produce any waste. Everything is recycled in a way. So that's really one point. And as for carbon sequestration, to me, this is one tiny aspect of climate change mitigation, and we focused a lot on this because it's easy to point to one responsible, but there are so many other parameters to take into account. And actually, there's also a lot of myths that exist around animal husbandry and livestock rearing in relation to that. And I think it's the way that we produce food, and especially animals, meat on the farm, I think has a positive impact in terms of carbon sequestration and other ecological aspects. You may know that, for example, grasslands hold a bigger potential than trees to sequestrate carbon and other gases, greenhouse gases. So in a way, if you have a very healthy grassland, you have a better potential than if you had forest. Of course, it depends what type of forest, and the grassland has to be healthy, and there are many ways to achieve that. If you just leave, I shouldn't go too much into details on this. We can talk later on if you wish, but there are ways to make it extremely resilient and extremely positive in terms of ecological impact, definitely. And I think it's part of the solution, and animal husbandry has often been depicted as part of the problem, and we should all go vegan, but actually this is really a big picture that focuses on an industrialized version of animal husbandry. And if you look into small farms and ways of doing this sustainably, they're really part of the solution.
Thank you very much. I already have a guest for my course at 2, but you will be invited. It's fascinating, both I mean, the knowledge that you have is, yeah, it's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you, Tara and Andres. I really appreciate your thoughts and hearing about your journeys. I had and especially like you talk about perseverance, passion, and what else was it? The importance of a plan B and resilience. But I think, Tara, you spoke a little bit about it. I wanted to ask about the disciplinary approach that you might have learned and implementation of it. That you did mention that you have different sort of what do you call them, departments? But you have different sort of expertise that you're applying, that you're implementing. For both of you, are there any like new or modern like technologies or tools that you might implement, or could, especially in relation to like the resilience for climate change? And first of all, does it also affect you? I know, Andres, you mentioned you saw some droughts and stuff, but also are there any like new tools from like satellite data to something that you might use on a daily basis in the farm, or that might help you with, you know, because there are a lot of new tools that are using like maybe AI or using like cameras and stuff to detect. But yeah, please.
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, definitely. In terms, yeah, like just to answer the question, yeah, like global warmth and climate change has really affect coffee. So much so that right now the prices of coffee are super high. Like before, like it's the increase of a lifetime. Like people are going crazy because the price of coffee are super expensive because of two countries that have been experiencing worse, that are Brazil and Colombia, that are the main producers of Arabica coffee. So the prices went from $2 a pound to $4 a pound, so almost twice. Never happened, and it's because of climate change. So you really need to like, you can use like not only AI, but there's been a lot of research related to what you can do in order to fight climate change in your particular setting. Of course, coffee production, it's super reliant on that. There's only a small belt in the world where you can produce coffee. That's why you go as high as a particular part of Mexico and all the way down to Bolivia, but not lower. And that particular belt goes all around the world. So it's very, very reliant on that. And it's very important to, yeah, find and new techniques and technology that can help you, but also use what has proven to work. When you have these issues, like having an agroforestry production helps quite a bit because it becomes sort of like a protective layer in terms of the drowness. It helps to maintain the soil, the soil nutrients and everything. So using the techniques that have been suggested for a very long time, they definitely work. And in terms of the coffee sector, there's a bunch of innovation, some that you can invent, but some that you can get from different sectors. The example is, for example, when you lack water, like this is an example of a wash and a natural coffee. Like a wash coffee is something that you use a lot of water and you clean it, and then you have the natural coffee that it's like you dry it with the fruit and then you dehull it like you would dehull the parchment for the wash coffee. And this has happened in different regions due to the lack of water. For example, in Latin America, that we have abundant water, they have used the wash method. And for the case of Africa, they use the natural coffee because they don't have water. So by understanding that, you have a lot of different technologies that you can use in order to avoid the usage of water. We have some techniques that are, it's called the pulse vacuum that we invented, that is using a technique from the gastronomic sector, which is called sous vide, like negative pulses of negative pressure. And that way it helps you to not need to depulp the coffee, but at the same time, it shortens the amount of time that you need to dry the coffee. So these sort of techniques are there, and you certainly can use them. AI is helping a lot in terms of these new machineries, new technology. There's drones now that work with AI, and they can identify the particular area that it's experiencing a particular disease, so you can like attack just this particular area, or whether the soil, by looking at plants, they can tell you what type of nutrition they need, if they lack certain particular like macro ingredient like nitrogen, or if they are suffering for that part of things. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to implement that, but with the community, we're working in a project, for example, right now of climate, like a climate station for the entire region, in order to sort of understand what happens, because climate, like rains and all of that stuff, it's going to impact not only the production of coffee, but we are in a very remote area, so there's a lot of landslides and everything. So also it helps us prevent and sort of understand what happened. Like 3 years ago, we have an incredible, no, 5 years ago was the hardest raining season that we experienced. We were cut from Bolivia for a month. So these sort of tools help you prevent for that. And if you can't avoid this happening, but at least what you can do is prepare the different farms and everything. So yes, like technology is happening, but you can sort of adapt, use all techniques that manage to prove, and at the same time you can get certain other techniques and innovations from other sectors and apply it to this to the particular one.
Judith, is the time for you to answer? So, in the case of our farm, I would say that we mainly use low-tech solutions, and as Andres has highlighted, solutions that have proven their efficiency. But we also, I mean, once or twice we used technology, more innovatives, we could call them solutions, or technologically based solutions. And that was, for example, to fly a drone above the farm in order to get a very precise topographical map, because the maps that were available of this region were not precise enough. And to use keyline design, it was very helpful to have a map that was 20 centimeter accuracy level. So that's the only time we used technology on the farm. I would say I also used a couple of times, of course, a few times I used also an app to monitor the grazing, and because we do a lot of monitoring for when I took care of that poll, I was doing the monitoring for biodiversity assessment to see the impact of grazing on the different land plots. And so I was using an app that helped me to do that, to monitor the diversity that was growing and that was very, very visible. And that was also very gratifying to see and to be able to assess the concrete results of what you're implementing on your farm, and the fact that it does have, it's amazing how responsive it is. You see from one year to the next the results. That's also extremely gratifying to see, okay, this method is really working well, and when it doesn't perfectly work well, you try to understand what's lacking for it to be really fully efficient and successful. So yeah.
Sarah, how does that work?
Excuse me, your question is for Tara or for Andres or for both?
For both, actually.
And I think Andres left.
No.
He's here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know, we see him now on the new screen. No, we see and hear you. No worries.
So we go ahead with this question for both?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, so it was just a curiosity on the low-tech solutions you're using. So apart from also the importance of financial access to this kind of technology, what are other barriers that you could have encountered in using those kind of technologies? And not only in your experience, but also maybe in other farmers you know. And I also wanted to know the name of the app you were using in your case.
Yeah, I'll start answering. So, to give you a full answer, I would need more time. But basically,
Sorry for that.
No, no worries.
We have a drink.
I'll drink afterwards. Okay, so for us, it was the four of us are not from farming background, so we had to buy the land and buy the house that we're living in, and that was a massive initial investment. So the little money that we had left was, I mean, determined the fact that we couldn't spend a lot of money on expensive high-tech solutions. So that was, but it's also, I mean, it's beyond just limitations. We from the start, we anyways didn't want to make big investments because we also believe that small scale can have a social and ecological impact that is more powerful sometimes even than bigger scale. We were talking about resilience. For us, diversity is key. If you do, 50 hectares of one species, then if there's a disease that affects this species, how do you react to that? And then you lost your year's harvest. So for us, if one species is attacked or two, you still have 40 to rely on for vegetables, for example. So that was really important to us to keep the investments as low as possible. And for your question on the app, maybe I'll answer outside because I'm not sure that everyone's interested.
I was more interested in general, in all the challenges and problems you could have experienced by using technology besides of the financial limit, obviously. But I was, for example, thinking about, I don't know if you're operating in an off-grid area or...
Right. No, not particularly. No, it's mainly the financial reason, but also the fact that it's not really needed because it's so small scale. We don't use a tractor because there's no need. We have 6 hectares. So actually from the main house, you can see all of the land. This is not the case of much bigger farms that may need drones and tractors to work the land. For us, everything is made manually. So when it's that small scale, you actually don't. We're bio-intensive, so we're producing a lot by the hectare, by meter square, if you will, and without starving the land. But for this, you don't really need. I mean, at least we in our context don't really need much technology. We're not off-grid also, so of course, internet is a huge tool for us, like for every farmer today. And this is what I can say.
Thank you.
Andres, you have a say on that?
Yeah, in terms of low tech or high tech, I think more than the expensive or cheaper tech is what's the tech that's needed. I know there's a lot of things, like for example, I'm going to use the example as the farm. We have a bioreactor that's very expensive for the processing of coffee. But actually one of the things, and we started with this and we still use that, it's very, very useful. This is a fermentation technique that we developed at the beginning. And that's the one that we're replicating with small-scale producers, because the idea was, okay, I have the chance to buy a bioreactor, but a small-scale producer has no chance of buying a bioreactor to process their coffee, and it's not worth it at all. So what can we do is use the techniques that we used at the beginning of the farm, which are super good and help quite a lot. And it's low-tech. It's super low-tech in terms of the materials that you're using, but it's just an understanding of how coffee works, and that you don't necessarily need the super high, most expensive technology that's ever. Most of the farms we work with welders and things that we have here in Bolivia makes it a lot cheaper. We don't need to import a lot of things. So I would consider that low tech, but understanding behind this fermentation technique requires a lot of knowledge, and that helps a lot. So for example, for the Four Llamas Family Initiative, that was actually the motto, the small-scale producer of coffee, processing their coffee is going to disappear because of the entry of these new actors in the coffee sector, especially in the production aspect. So we need to find affordable solutions that can make the coffee reach a certain level of quality that that can enter the specialty market and actually gain from that. So for example, for this idea, for this fermentation, we just need 2 barrels, these blue barrels that are sealed, and just a pressure valve that you put that costs nothing. And with that and some little slips of paper that tell you what the level of acidity, that's not expensive at all, you can actually do amazing coffee. So in this regard, yes, there's technology that is super expensive that if you get a chance to do it, it helps quite a lot. But there's a lot of solutions that don't need to have super expensive technology. The example of, for example, how to avoid climate change. Just plant trees. And try to mix the trees that you're using from fruit, and then you're using timber that work, we call it semi-precious timber that grow quite fast, like the cedro and cocoa, and then you have like real timber that you're putting, so you're not only diversifying, because at the end you're putting timber in your land, but you're also avoiding climate change. So yes, there's certainly solutions that are super technological that help a lot, but they are not always necessary. Like you can actually do affordable technology that's very, very, very applicable. There's a producer that has produced 500 kilos of coffee last year, and he normally got $2 a pound. This year he got 10 for the coffee, because that was the level of quality of the coffee, and he used this technique that is super simple. So that I would say, like, there are a lot of low-tech technologies that can prove very, very helpful and can become solutions. On a longer term. Sometimes you get super excited about the flash of, for example, these solar panels that work with like that are super expensive and not necessarily are going to be applicable on a mass scale. So sometimes the low tech but really thought out technology that you're applying could have a replication effect much bigger than these very flashy high-tech technologies.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you very much. We're going to stop now and move to have a drink. We saw you have drinking your coffee, Andres. We have not yet. Thank you so much to both of you. I find it, not only because you're friends and I like you both very much, but I found this session more than what it was to be. I mean, we had them sharing their practical experience, job life, but it's fascinating, especially during the answer to the questions from the students, how it became also, could be a session for my class, discussing, because you are discussing the concept, the approach, and if we would continue your last say about this high versus low, it becomes a super interesting scholar critical discussion of modernization, with which we are all obsessed for the best and the worst in scholar work. So thank you very much, fascinating. And Andres, see you soon in the plantation.
Yes.
Hope next summer. We have students in the room where's Julia? She left. Who just returned from Bolivia. We have students in Bolivia. We have students who will be soon in Bolivia. It's really fascinating. Thank you. I leave the floor to
Thank you, everyone. So we'll have a very quick apéro outside. The Agri-Food Collective has a surprise for you, and so yeah, they have a small speech. They're gonna make some ad for their collective. So please come with us, just right outside. And there is the next roundtable next week on Wednesday about art and culture. I'm looking forward to see you there, maybe. And yeah, thank you for